My name is Kim Rosenlof. I am a self-employed writer, technical communicator, marketing communicator. I divide my duties between technical writing and creative writing. Since I'm self-employed, I work for a number of different clients. For example, right now I am doing an online help program. I'm also the marketing coordinator for an aviation company, and I write for several different aviation publications. Well, even as a youngster, I always wanted to write. And I lived in Wisconsin, very cold state, and I am not fond of the cold. I did not do the ice skating, tobogganing, sledding, that sort of thing. I spent a lot of my time indoors reading and writing short stories. My first article was published when I was in 8th grade. And I won a number of, school and regional literary contests and that sort of thing. And I had always wanted to be a writer. And one of the conversations I had with my dad at one time, I told him I wanted to be a writer, and he said, "Well, what are you going to write about? You won't know anything until you're 50, so you won't have anything to write about." So I took a little bit of that to heart, and I decided to change my focus from writing as a career to going into engineering, because I felt that at least engineers could get a job. And even all the way through high school, all the way through college, I kept a little note up on my desk that said 3 things kept me from being a writer: writer's cramp, writer's block, and writer's starve. And so I kept that focus on, well, I really wanted to be a writer, but writers really can't make any money in the real world. So I went to school with a scholarship for engineering and decided to try to make a go out of engineering. But writing was always in my heart. And I said, why am I trying to be an engineer when I really want to be a writer? And then I found out about technical writing and technical communications. And I said, aha, wait a minute, now I can write. I can do all the technical things that I find interesting. I love airplanes. I love knowing how things work and software and that sort of thing. But I can write about it, and somebody will pay me. This is fantastic. So that was pretty much the spark that led me to technical communications. I started in Society for Technical Communication shortly after moving to Phoenix, and shortly upon getting my first job as a technical writer at Honeywell, what I really want to say about STC, though, is that I have been a member of the Phoenix chapter for well over a dozen years. In fact, it's probably more like 14 or 15 years now. And there's so much value that comes out of STC, both in terms of jobs. As being a self-employed technical communicator, I have received some contract jobs through STC contacts. But the bigger part of STC is having that community that you can go to, that you can bounce ideas off of. You can learn what other people are doing in the industry, and this is so valuable. The tools change in our industry. The ideas change. It's not enough to have an English background. You have to have a knowledge of the language. You have to have a knowledge of the subject. You have to know how to interview people. You have to know how to write instructions so that users can understand. You have to be the go-between between the engineers and the end user. You have to know what tools are available to be able to put your print documentation, your online documentation, webinars, all kinds of things together. And it is hard to do that on your own. Having a community to go to is invaluable. If you are considering entering technical communication, it is my personal opinion that it is more important to have a background in the industry or the field that you are interested in documenting than to have an English degree or perhaps even a degree in technical communication. For example, my two degrees are in aviation because I'm a wing nut. I love airplanes. I love airplanes, hot air balloons, helicopters, whatever. If it flies, I love it. I even like birds. So I went to school, I did start out in engineering, but I went to school in aviation, and so my background is in aviation. I prefer to work in aviation. I don't always, but I prefer to work in aviation. I have a background in writing because I've been writing since I was 8 years old. I was always good in writing. And I have taken every opportunity to enhance my writing skills. I have taken additional courses. I've taken some workshops and things like that. But in terms of actually having a degree, having the background to be able to speak the engineer's language and speak your end user's language, that I feel is more important than having a degree in English or having a degree in technical communications. Oh, I think the opportunities are wide open. Wide open. Now we are not limited to printed documentation. There are some companies that are still doing just printed documentation, but it's few and far between. Now we can do printed documentation and online documentation and webinars and websites, and if you don't want to go purely into the technical side, you can do what I've done and do some technical writing and do some creative writing for magazines, and there are all kinds of things out there. I really don't think you can get bored in technical writing or technical communication. There are opportunities out there, and people are still hiring because people are still producing things. And when you're producing something, whether it's a product or a service, you need to let people know how to use it. So I believe there will pretty much always be opportunities for technical communicators. I will say, though, that you have to be flexible and you have to reinvent yourself. If you only know Microsoft Word or if you only know FrameMaker, you may have fewer opportunities than if you know Word, FrameMaker, WebHelp, RoboHelp, Madcap Flare, and all the, not only know how to use the tools, but also know how to use those tools effectively. The background, the user research. Okay, I ran out of words. I would really like to say that it's up to you to fashion your own career. And this, of course, goes with whatever career that you are looking at, but certainly in technical writing and in documentation, you can do almost anything that you want to do. You can find small companies that need documentation. You can find large companies that need documentation. You can find one company and stay with them for a very long time, or you can be self-employed like myself, who's been gainfully I think that's right, gainfully self-employed for more than a dozen years. So kind of the sky's the limit, and you can do whatever you want to do in this field.